So the full trailer to Martin Scorsese's The Irishman has finally dropped, mere hours before the film is set to have its world premiere at the New York Film Festival on Friday. We had the announcement trailer a few months ago, showing off the big names who were in the film. The teaser trailer dropped around a month ago, our first proper look at the movie. Now we have the actual official trailer, one that we can actually really sink our teeth into. This might be the last trailer to the film, or it may be that Netflix dish out a few more before the film hits their streaming service on November the 27th. It really is such a cool feeling, because I've been talking about this film for ages. I've been going on about it for so long, and at times it felt like I was talking to myself. I was so excited for this gangster film starring De Niro, Pacino, Pesci and Keitel for the first time. And now everyone is excited. Everyone is talking about it. Film communities everywhere are sharing joy and anticipation of this film. It's great stuff. I was finishing my video on the new images that were released of a de-aged De Niro last night, and it was about 1 o'clock in the morning and I felt like a zombie. And as I'm scrolling through the internet while waiting for the video to upload, I see this announcement from Jimmy Fallon announcing that he's going to show a new trailer for The Irishman on his show tonight. And I just sat there thinking, it's past midnight, I've got work in the morning, but I just have to let everyone know, the trailer's coming today. So I made a quick video letting my subscribers know, hit the hay for a few hours, and lo and behold, when I woke up in the morning, there she was, in the flesh, the official trailer to the last great gangster movie, The Irishman. Now you might be thinking, hang on a minute there sunshine, you're sounding a little obsessed there. And yes, I am obsessed with this film. Click on my channel and you'll see how obsessed I am. It's getting to a point where I would have needed medical attention if the film was delayed any further. I'm joking. Anyway, the trailer. What did you think? I liked it. I really liked it. There's a few things here and there that I want to talk about and discuss, but overall it felt like the moment after you make a big speech you were really nervous about, all the tension gone, you just feel relief, because that's what the trailer gave me, relief and reassurance that this film is in the hands of a cinematic legend, and any suggestions that he's slowed down, that he's past it, are swept away by the trailer. So let's take a look at it. First things first, the thing that everyone is talking about, the thing that was a controversy and a massive risk from day one, the de-aging CGI. If you don't know already, Scorsese got Industrial Light and Magic to de-age his main cast to make them look suitable for the ages they're playing, as this film covers around 60 decades or so. De Niro, for example, being in the film as young as in his early 20s all the way to his 80s. It ballooned the budget, nobody wanted to pay for it, which is why the film is with Netflix. The CGI showcased in the teaser trailer was a mixed bag. Most of it was good, but De Niro himself looked a little off, and there wasn't really enough to judge anyway. And I think we can say, judging by this trailer, the CGI is very good. It's excellent in fact, perfect in some shots, brilliant in others. There's a few hokey moments. The scene where De Niro meets Pesci looks a little weird, and then again when he and De Niro are at the bowling alley, the movement on Pesci's face looks a little off. And then you have the split second of the World War II flashback of De Niro in his 20s, which kind of looks like a very realistic video game cutscene. But to be honest, my reservations about the CGI are pretty much gone. Of course you can't say fully until you've seen the film, and who knows, maybe the shots in the trailer are the best they have to offer, but most of the de-aging showcased is brilliant. Pacino's CGI is flawless pretty much. The work they did there is remarkable. I really like the shot of De Niro in his 40s. This is where I was most worried, the truck driving era of Sheeran. There's going to be a lot of screen time during this period. How would they make it work? But it looked good, it really does. Is it absolute perfection? No. But is it a case of, if the CGI is consistently like this, are our minds going to accept it, and will it not detract from the experience? I think so. I think at the very worst, we'll know it's CGI. We know the actors are all old, so we can't get that out of our heads, and our brains will be automatically scrutinizing and comparing, but we'll accept it around 10 minutes into the movie. I don't think the CGI is a problem. I'm happy with it. At the very worst, if it is noticeable, we'll just buy it the same way we buy the fact that we know guys in superhero movies flying around and blowing things up is CGI. It doesn't look like real life, but it's close enough that our brains accept it. In fact, I showed this trailer to my mum. She's a huge Scorsese fan. She's from the era of people that grew up with his mob movies. She loved it, by the way. Thought it was very exciting, especially the opening exchange between Ray Romano and De Niro, classic mob humor. But I asked her about the CGI, whether she noticed it, whether it looked bad. And she said, yeah, it's clear they are old and young in different scenes, but it all looks good. And I think to the average person, they won't even notice it. Yeah, De Niro looks young here, he looks old there, but they'll just chalk it up to movie magic. You and me, we've been zooming in on still images, endlessly examining, but the average film goer will not notice, I don't think. If they notice something looks different, they might just chalk it up to that being the way movies look nowadays. Only those looking for the CGI will notice it. After all, I could point at someone in the trailer, someone random like Ray Romano or Jesse Plemons, and say that they used CGI on him, and you might think they did. Everyone has this kind of glossy look from afar, but that's just the look of the film. Now I'm happy. I like it. It's the best that could possibly have been done in the era that we're in terms of the time they had and the money they had. Will it take away from the experience is the real question. Will it break the immersion? And I think the answer is no. Some people are saying, oh, but he looks so old in the young scenes. But he isn't supposed to look like a young De Niro. He's supposed to look like a young Frank Sheeran. And if you look at real life photos of him, I think they've done a swell job. I don't think we're going to notice the CGI much when watching the film. So it looks like, in typical Scorsese fashion, he's taken a huge risk and it's paid off immensely. I like the trailer. They perhaps showed a bit too much for the casual fan. I did raise my eyebrows at some of the stuff they showed, in terms of, spoilers. The trailer is also quite comical and upbeat, but somehow I doubt the film is anywhere near as funny as it's being made out to be here. Here there'll be moments of classic mob humor, but overall it's a much more melancholy and sad film than what the trailer here suggests. In fact, it's actually an interesting question in that how will they market the film? I made a video on this called Is the Irishman a Murder Mystery? Where I discussed how they would sell this film to audiences. Would they think that people know what happens in the end, what the main plot point is, or would they assume that most people know nothing of the story and sell it as a kind of murder mystery? Show in the trailers that Frank Sheeran was caught in the middle of a fight and he has to pick a side. And it looks like that's what they went for, literally showing De Niro with one gun in one hand and another in the other, as if to say to general audiences, will he or won't he? Or that this man has to make a choice, Buffalino or Hoffa, one of them has to go. I like the colour of the trailer. One of the things I noticed in the teaser was that the colour was quite bland, quite typical of Netflix movies, but the colour grading in this trailer makes it look quite distinct. It's not going to be drab and dreary. Of course, it's not going to have that natural look like Goodfellas. That's something we have to accept because, of course, of all the CGI. I mean, there is a lot of background shots in the trailer that are CGI, but it's so good you don't even notice. It's such an exciting trailer. It really is. For a film full of senior citizens, it looks so full of energy, so full of that classic Scorsese style and adrenaline. There's so many characters, so many plot points. We get a bit of this, we get a bit of that. Our first look at Harvey Keitel, our first look at the World War II flashbacks. The acting looks intense. Everyone's turned up and is firing on all cylinders. The trailer is not hiding the de-aging either, like the teaser. If anything, it's showing it off. It's saying, look what we did. Look what we were able to give you. So let's go through it. Please note, I will be talking about stuff that happens in the film, but I won't mention any major spoilers, none of the big plot points. But I know some people, myself included, don't like when even minor scenes are discussed. So if that's you, then this probably isn't the video for you. The trailer is almost a brief summary of the entire film. It hits the beats in the right order and you essentially get a feel of the entire story from it, whether you think that's a good thing or a bad thing. So the first few quick shots are of De Niro putting on his watch, a cherished gift from Jimmy Hoffa, and his ring, an equally dear gift from Russell Buffalino. This might be literally the first scene in the film, at least the first 10 or 15 minutes or so from what I got from the script. The two gifts symbolize his close relationship between the two men. Sheeran in real life called the two men the greatest he's ever met, and in doing so, It highlights how difficult it was to decide what to do when tensions rose and people started turning on each other. This part with Romano and De Niro is when he was in trouble for stealing, and Bill Bufalino, the mob lawyer who defends Sheeran, notices he keeps quiet and doesn't rat out others who were in on it also, and thus his reputation increases within mob circles. I like Romano. He's had some good dramatic roles recently. I was a big fan of Everybody Loves Raymond, which shot him to stardom. In fact, I actually watch it every day when I come home from work. It's weird seeing him in there and amongst titans like De Niro and Pesci. You half expect him to start screeching, "Deborah!" But he fits perfectly. He looks perfectly at home. Did anyone notice Robert Funaro sitting down in this shot on the left? That's the guy who plays Eugene in The Sopranos. Just thought that was interesting. It's also interesting that Sheeran is introduced to Pesci's Bufalino in this scene, and Pesci replies, "Nice to meet you," implying obviously that they've never met. Unless this is followed up with something like, "Nice to meet you again," or something like that. It looks like they might possibly have changed the way Sheeran first meets Bufalino, which was a chance encounter when Sheeran's truck broke down and Bufalino helps fix it. Then, like the teaser trailer, there's shots of De Niro going to work late at night while his daughter watches on. Very important for later on when he becomes an old man. We see De Niro doing a lot of mob shenanigans, blowing up cars and stuff, until Bufalino sends him to Jimmy Hoffa. It's here where we get some narration from old man Sheeran, and De Niro's voice is clearly different. He said on the Jimmy Fallon show that the voices have not been changed digitally. There is no de-aging work there. So every time you hear De Niro, whether he is young or old, that's him doing the voice. And from what we hear, I think he sounded great. Didn't sound like an old man. And in fact, in one shot when he's in the telephone booth talking to Pacino, he sounds exactly like he did playing Jimmy Conway in Goodfellas. Pacino sounds great also. He doesn't sound like a young Pacino, of course, but he isn't playing a young Pacino. There's energy and fire in his voice that we haven't heard in years. And then you have Pesci, of course, who more or less sounds exactly as he always has done. Then there's extended shots of someone pulling a gun on Pacino in court, and the tussle that followed was also shown in the other trailer. They say that someone pulled a gun on Hoffa in real life, and he charged down the guy and wrestled him to the floor, and then, as shown in the trailer, said that you should run from someone who has a knife but charge at someone who has a gun because you won't expect it. But it's a scene that showcases how the entire film is revolved around Pacino, how he's going to be chewing the scenery and the focus is always on him. And that's what Pacino's been best at since the 90s, these kind of shouty, energetic performances. And then we get our first look, finally, at Harvey Keitel in The Irishman, Winston Wolfe himself, who worked with Scorsese before any of these actors but hasn't been in a Scorsese picture since the 80s. He's a fine addition to the film, he looks sharp, and he's playing a mob boss called Angelo Bruno. If you've seen my video about the 3 rings in The Irishman, I mentioned that the third was given to a close friend of Bufalino called Bruno, and this is him. He was nicknamed the Gentle Don for his preference for dialogue over violence, and this is what's happening here as Sheeran is in trouble again, this time with the mob, and he's summoned by Bruno and Bufalino to explain his actions. That's Bobby Cannavale in the background, by the way, playing a mobster called Skinny Razor. This is Keitel's main scene in the film. He isn't in the movie much aside from this meeting between these 3 men, but it's nice to have him in the film, and even nicer that these 3 Scorsese veterans all share screen together. There's another shot of Pesci here, and the expression he's making here reminds me of someone. It's quite a laissez-faire, nonchalant expression. I can't quite put my finger on it. Maybe I'm actually thinking of Pesci from an older film. What follows is some stuff we have already seen, and then De Niro pleading with Pacino that he has to sit down, to which Pacino replies he can't. Now this isn't a discussion about arthritis or back problems, it is of course in reference to a mob sit down, as this takes place when tensions are sky high between certain characters, and Sheeran is in the middle. This next part, with Pesci telling De Niro what it is, takes place during Frank Sheeran Appreciation Night, where a lot of stuff happens. I'm surprised this scene is included in the trailer, because if you know the context behind what Pacino is saying, this is a massive spoiler, and it takes place during a crucial period in the film. There's a follow-up scene between De Niro and Pacino here, and I think I have an image from the shoot of this very scene. On my community tab, I asked my subscribers which scene they thought this shot was from, and one guy and myself also thought it was Frank Sheeran's appreciation night. And by looking at the two side by side, you can really get an understanding and appreciation of just how much de-aging work was done, however subtle. The trailer is lightning fast, and there's a few quick fire shots here and there. They could be in reference to many different things. One, for example, is of a guy opening a safe full of money, the Teamsters pension fund perhaps, and this cool shot of Stephen Graham as Anthony Provenzano, the closest thing the film has to a direct antagonist. I'm looking forward to him in the film. He's going to be a real psycho. This part with De Niro in the World War II flashback is probably the worst CGI we've seen so far, which I spoke about in my last video. It isn't suicide inducing, but it does look quite rubbery and plasticky. If anything, this will take place in the beginning of the film anyway, so chances are the movie gets the worst CGI out of the way as soon as possible, sets the bar quite low, and from there it only gets better. I wonder what's happening here. Can't think of off the top of my head, but I don't really like this shot. It looks weird. There's too much CGI really. It almost looks like a painting. I've seen behind the scenes images of this part and the actors are surrounded by green screen, so all that in the background is likely CGI. And you can tell really. In a trailer that showcases some good looking CGI backgrounds, this is probably the worst. At the end of the trailer, as mentioned, Frank needs to make a choice, and we see a cool collection of his firearms. But I don't really think this scene has anything to do with Hoffa's storyline. I think this is him preparing for the Joe Gallo hit. He's wearing what looks like the same clothing as when he does the Gallo hit, and he picks up two guns, which is how many he uses in this shot of the Gallo hit. And the trailer closes out with how it started, with the Bill Buffalino and Sheeran scene. Some good acting on display here from Romano, channeling his comedy roots. I wonder if there's a meta element to this scene, in that this is Scorsese telling us that he doesn't really care whether Frank Sheeran's story is true, and there are some heavy debates about the validity of Sheeran's claims, but perhaps Scorsese is saying here, I'm just telling a story. So there you have it, the main trailer for The Irishman. The movie will make its world premiere on Friday, but it won't be until November the 27th until most get to see it on Netflix. Unless you are lucky like me and manage to go to a theatre showing before then. I've been lucky enough to nab tickets for a showing on October the 13th. Stay tuned for more videos on The Irishman. Consider subscribing if you like what you see. Let me know your thoughts on the trailer in the comments below, and thanks for watching.